not exceed 70 pounds. To convey 11,000 pounds requires nearly 160 men. Europe and the Orient, even Arabia and Turkestan, have royal ways of travelling compared to Africa. Specie is received in all those countries, by which a traveller may carry his means about him on his own person. Eastern and Central Africa, however, demand a necklace instead of a cent, 2 yards of American sheeting instead of half a dollar or a florin, and a kitindi of thick brass wire in place of a gold piece. The African traveller can hire neither wagons nor camels, neither horses nor mules, to proceed with him into the interior. His means of conveyance are limited to black and naked men, who demand at least $15 a head for every 70 pounds weight carried only as far as Unyanyembe. One thing amongst others my predecessors omitted to inform men bound for Africa, which is of importance, and that is, that no traveller should ever think of coming to Zanzibar with his money in any other shape than gold coin. Letters of credit, circular notes, and such civilized things I have found to be a century ahead of Zanzibar people. 20 and 25 cents deducted out of every dollar I drew on paper is one of the unpleasant, if not unpleasantest things I have committed to lasting memory. For Zanzibar is a spot far removed from all avenues of European commerce, and coin is at a high premium. A man may talk and entreat, but though he may have drafts, checks, circular notes, letters of credit, a carte blanche to get what he wants, out of every dollar must be deducted 25 and 30 cents, so I was told, and so was my experience. What a pity there is no branch bank here! I had intended to have gone into Africa incognito, but the fact that a white man, even an American, was about to enter Africa was soon known all over Zanzibar. This fact was repeated 1,000 times in the streets, proclaimed in all the shop alcoves, and at the custom house. The native bazaar laid hold of it, and agitated it day and night until my departure. The foreigners, including the Europeans, wished to know the pros and cons of my coming in and going out. My answer to all questions, pertinent and impertinent, was, I am going to Africa. Though my card bore the words, Henry M. Stanley, New York Herald, very few, I believe, ever coupled the words New York Herald with a search after Dr. Livingstone. It was not my fault, was it? Ah me, what hard work it is to start an expedition alone! What with hurrying through the baking heat of the fierce, relentless sun from shop to shop, strengthening myself with far-reaching and enduring patience for the haggling contest with the livid-faced Hindi, summoning courage and wit to browbeat the villainous Goanese, and match the foxy Banyan, talking volumes throughout the day, correcting estimates, making up accounts, superintending the delivery of purchased articles, measuring and weighing them to see that everything was of full measure and weight, overseeing the white men Farquhar and Shaw, who were busy on donkey saddles, sails, tents, and boats for the expedition, I felt, when the day was over, as though limbs and brain well deserved their rest. Such labours were mine unremittingly for a month. Having bartered drafts on Mr. James Gordon Bennett to the amount of several $1,000s for cloth, beads, wire, donkeys, and 1,000 necessaries, having advanced pay to the white men and black escort of the expedition, having fretted Captain Webb and his family more than enough with the din of preparation, and filled his house with my goods, there was nothing further to do but to leave my formal adieus with the Europeans, and thank the Sultan and those gentlemen who had assisted me, before embarking for Bagamoyo. The day before my departure from Zanzibar, the American consul, having just habited himself in his black coat, and taking with him an extra black hat, in order to be in state apparel, proceeded with me to the Sultan's palace. The Prince had been generous to me. He had presented me with an Arab horse, had furnished me with letters of introduction to his agents, his chief men, and representatives in the interior, and in many other ways had shown himself well disposed towards me. The palace is a large, roomy, lofty square house, close to the fort, built of coral, and plastered thickly with lime mortar. In appearance it is half Arabic and half Italian. The shutters are Venetian blinds painted a vivid green, and presenting a striking contrast to the whitewashed walls. Before the great, lofty, wide door were ranged in 2 crescents several Baluch and Persian mercenaries, armed with curved swords and targes of rhinoceros hide. Their dress consisted of a muddy white cotton shirt reaching to the ankles, girdled with a leather belt thickly studded with silver bosses. As we came in sight, a signal was passed to some person inside the entrance. When within 20 yards of the door, the Sultan, who was standing waiting, came down the steps, and passing through the ranks advanced toward us, with his right hand stretched out and a genial smile of welcome on his face. On our side we raised our hats and shook hands with him, after which, doing according as he bade us, we passed forward and arrived on the highest step near the entrance door. He pointed forward, we bowed and arrived at the foot of an unpainted and narrow staircase, to turn once more to the Sultan. The consul, I perceived, was ascending sideways, a mode of progression which I saw was intended for a compromise with decency and dignity. At the top of the stairs we waited, with our faces towards the upcoming prince. Again we were waved magnanimously forward, for before us was the reception hall and throne room. I noticed as I marched forward to the furthest end that the room was high, and painted in the Arabic style, that the carpet was thick and of Persian fabric, that the furniture consisted of a dozen gilt chairs and a chandelier. We were seated. Ludha Damshi, the Banyan collector of customs, a venerable-looking old man with a shrewd, intelligent face, sat on the right of the Sultan. Next to him was the great Mohammedan merchant Tarya Topan, who had come to be present at the interview, not only because he was one of the councillors of His Highness, but because he also took a lively interest in this American expedition. Opposite to Ludha sat Captain Webb, and next to him I was seated, opposite Tarya Topan. The Sultan sat in a gilt chair between the Americans and the councillors. Johari the dragoman stood humbly before the Sultan, expectant and ready to interpret what we had to communicate to the prince. The Sultan, so far as dress goes, might be taken for a Mingrelian gentleman, excepting, indeed, for the turban, whose ample folds in alternate colours of red, yellow, brown, and white encircled his head. His long robe was of dark cloth, cinctured round the waist with his rich sword belt, from which was suspended a gold-hilted scimitar, encased in a scabbard also enriched with gold. His legs and feet were bare, and had a ponderous look about them, since he suffered from that strange curse of Zanzibar, elephantiasis. His feet were slipped into a pair of wada, Arabic for slippers, with thick soles and a strong leathern band over the instep. His light complexion and his correct features, which are intelligent and regular, bespeak the Arab patrician. They indicate, however, nothing except his high descent and blood. No traits of character are visible, unless there is just a trace of amiability, and perfect contentment with himself and all around. Such is Prince or Sayed Bergash, Sultan of Zanzibar and Pemba, and the east coast of Africa, from Somaliland to the Mozambique, as he appeared to me. Coffee was served in cups supported by golden finjas, also some cocoa-nut milk, and rich sweet sherbet. The conversation began with the question addressed to the council. "Are you well?" Council. "Yes, thank you. How is His Highness?" Highness. "Quite well." Highness to me. "Are you well?" Answer. "Quite well, thanks." The council now introduces business, and questions about my travels follow from His Highness. "How do you like Persia? Have you seen Kerbela, Baghdad, Messer, Stamboul? Have the Turks many soldiers? How many has Persia? Is Persia fertile? How do you like Zanzibar?" Having answered each question to His Highness's satisfaction, he handed me letters of introduction to his officers at Bagamoyo and Kaole, and a general introductory letter to all Arab merchants whom I might meet on the road, and concluded his remarks to me with the expressed hope that on whatever mission I was bound I should be perfectly successful. We bowed ourselves out of his presence in much the same manner that we had bowed ourselves in, he accompanying us to the great entrance door. Mr. Goodhue of Salem, an American merchant long resident in Zanzibar, presented me, as I gave him my adieu, with a blooded bay horse imported from the Cape of Good Hope, and worth, at least at Zanzibar, $500. February 4. By the 4th of February, 28 days from the date of my arrival at Zanzibar, the organization and equipment of the New York Herald expedition was complete. Tents and saddles had been manufactured, boats and sails were ready, the donkeys brayed, and the horses neighed impatiently for the road. Etiquette demanded that I should once more present my card to the European and American consuls at Zanzibar, and the word farewell was said to everybody. On the 5th day 4 dhows were anchored before the American consulate. Into one were lifted the 2 horses, into 2 others the donkeys, into the 4th, the largest, the black escort, and bulky moneys of the expedition. A little before noon we set sail. The American flag, a present to the expedition by that kind-hearted lady, Mrs. Webb, was raised to the masthead. The consul, his lady, and exuberant little children, Mary and Charlie, were on the housetop waving the starry banner